And welcome. We are here today at St. Clair College hosting University of Toronto, Mississauga. I am Andre Frez Segan, joined with me today by Daniel, the Saved One Mana. Daniel, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really good, man. I'm really excited to jump into this one. We have about 1 minute left before we actually jump into the action here. So we just get to quickly introduce some of these teams and what exactly they got going on. So I'm really excited to jump into this one. We've seen a lot of St. Clair throughout the tryouts themselves. So I think this one's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I could not agree more. We got our preseason going on today. We got a best of 3 for you guys. What do you want to see today, Daniel?
I want to see a lot of new picks. I want to see a lot of comfort, and I want to see some new picks. Hopefully some of these guys, they have some one tricks that they can definitely pull out. So I'm excited to jump into this one. We got the coach, iGlory, already standing by. He's just prepping up the team, trying to get them excited for this match. It is a preseason, and it's also versus the University of Toronto, so we know these guys are really excited to bring it.
Yeah, exactly. And it sounds to me, just from the other room, we can hear them for here. They're pumped up. Yeah. They're excited. I'm excited.
This is it.
Getting into this first game here. It should be a really good time, Daniel.
Yeah, and the one thing I also want to see is out of Apex, because we know when we were watching them during the tryouts, at least, he was absolutely popping off. Yes. He knew exactly how to play the map, how to play support even as the role, and knew how to play bot lane and how to control that lane just super, super cleanly. So I want to see him take an active role with Blinn. I want to see how they actually synergize with each other, because I know that, of course, when you have a very active support, he's the one that usually kind of controls that lane. He loves to just absolutely take over through comms and also through champion picks. So I want to see if he pulls out something like a Blitzcrank here. Yeah. So we've been seeing it a little bit at Worlds, but we have no idea if this guy has been really practicing him, because in tryouts, at least, he was playing a lot of the playmakers, right? He was playing, I think he played Thresh at one point, and it was really, really good. So hopefully he can pull out another hook champion like that, or maybe even the Nautilus, right? Nautilus is absolutely great right now with the Kaisa. I can go on for days about all these picks.
I could not agree more with you, Daniel. Fortunately, when I was at the tryouts, I actually had the privilege of playing with Blinn and Apex on the same team as myself.
That's great.
And when I'm just watching these guys and I'm playing with them, you just can't help but think these guys are going to make the team. Yeah. These guys are so good. They played so well together. They played so well individually. These guys, they know what they're doing. Yeah. So I would not expect them to perform any less than that today.
I also want to take a look at the top jungle mid synergy, because of course we could talk a lot about the bot lane synergy, but the one thing that sometimes takes the game is how the jungle and mid synergize, or how the jungle and top synergize. If they can communicate effectively, if they can play certain champions together. We recently just saw, I believe it was in the Damwon versus TL game, we saw the Yasuo Gragas come out, and they were playing a lot around that. So I want to see if they can kind of pull out comps like that, where the jungle and the mid carry, or maybe the jungle and the top carry, because I know that a lot of junglers love ganking top lane. As a jungler myself, I love ganking top lane. It's such a massive lane. You got so much room if you want to cover that. And we know in a meta just like this, how early game junglers, they absolutely succeed. So we can see a lot of Elise. We can see a lot of Lee Sin. Rek'Sai we've been seeing at Worlds. I don't know if I said Gragas, but Gragas is definitely up there. Hecarim is another one. So we have all of these junglers that we need to take into factor, and we need to see if Active Frost can play that role.
Yeah, I could not agree more. You touched on the most recent patches as far as early game jungling, snowballing. Do you think that's going to be a really big factor in these games? And do you think that either of these teams are going to adapt to that and like try to play these early game junglers, like you mentioned, and incorporate them into their strategy?
And I do think that they need to really pull out early game junglers, right? I don't think that tank junglers are really all that good right now. We kind of moved out of that meta from Sejuani. So now we're starting to kind of see a lot more, like I was saying, Lee Sin. We're starting to see Elise. We're starting to see all of these champions that are just really, really good to play even against each other, even the Jarvan in some cases.
Even Echo.
Yeah, exactly. Echo. We've been seeing that at Worlds as well. But we need to see if these guys kind of adapted, because we know Diamond players, they can definitely adapt. Yes, especially absolutely. When you make it to Diamond 3, that's when you start to kind of fall into that meta category. You need to start learning meta champions in order to climb into the higher diamond ranks. So definitely, I think that both of these junglers, they definitely need to pull out something like this. And of course, comfort's all that great, but when your comfort is an early game jungler, it makes all that difference.
Yeah, unfortunately, my Teemo support one trick will only get me so far up the ladder. But that's exactly why these guys are at these ranks that they're at because they're so good at adapting to these metas. They don't just one-trick champions. Some of them might be really good at one champion, but they're definitely not afraid to be flexible and play certain champions in these different circumstances. And especially today when they're going to be getting target banned because each team knows who they're playing against. They're going to have more than their one pick today.
And I think that it's going to rely a lot on the mid and top pools as well, because of course we've been seeing a lot at Worlds how some teams will target ban a solo lane, but they have kind of that like fifth pick, right? They know how to adapt if like let's just say like the enemy team will end up picking either their champion or if they want to try and pick flex picks, right? All of these things are a huge possibility if they want to bring it out here. The one pick I definitely want to see is Syndra because you can play Syndra in the mid lane or you can also play her in the bot lane as an ADC. We saw at Worlds as well, Veigar is starting to come out from a lot of the Korean teams, exactly. So hopefully that could also be a pick, but a lot of these ADCs are starting to get hard countered by all of these mages in the bot lane, and hopefully we could see at least this collegiate scene kind of adapt to that meta too.
Yeah, you mentioned the mages going bot lane. We've seen that a lot, especially this entire season. And one thing that also opens up like flexible picks in the top jungle because you no longer have to force, okay, we need attack damage and physical damage in that bottom lane. So we need some AP coming from somewhere. You can take that AP and start sending it into the bottom lane.
Yep. And we're slowly going to be jumping into this one, which is going to be super awesome. We get to see the bands coming through. It's going to be Gragas coming in for the very first band coming out here, which is definitely what we need to see out of some early game junglers. Also, Pantheon is something that was actually banned at Worlds too. Yeah,
Pantheon. This Pantheon rework, what do you think about this?
I think it's really good, even though I believe Simo was telling me yesterday that he got nerfed, but definitely a lot of... He's still top tier band. So
yeah, absolutely. He has so much all in potential, especially like as soon as he gets level 2, he's got his bar charged up. He can literally all in just any champion ranged melee and top lane. And sorry, I don't think the Q nerf is quite gonna cut it, and they're definitely respecting it here.
Yeah, I definitely also love the Xayah as well as the Kiana bands coming out. They're kind of trying to target every single one of these lanes. St. Clair really trying to find what guy gives them the most. There we go. Gives them the most trouble. So try and spread all of these bands out. Maybe some one tricks, maybe whatever. But then we also see over on University, they got the Swain band, they got the Yuumi band as well as the Pantheon. Let's see what these guys end up picking for their first pick. There's so many options. They can definitely go for the jungle. They can go for the ADC. We've been seeing that. The Galio going to be coming out, which is an awesome pick. My bad.
Yeah. But yeah, we've seen Galio support. We've seen Galio mid. Where do you think he's going to be ending up, Daniel?
I think he's definitely going to be ending up in the mid lane. I think the young Falcon can definitely pick that and just take it and roll with it, mainly because we can see just so much synergize with that. If they actually end up picking the Jarvan Yasuo, then Galio can literally go where.
Could not agree more.
We have no idea where that can where that can go then. But let's definitely talk about when University of Toronto end up picking out.
Yeah, we see them pick up the Kai'Sa here. Kai'Sa has definitely been a S tier, at least in competitive play, at least. Not so much in solo queue, but we've seen it played a lot. We've seen Double Lift pop off with it, and they also lock into Lee Sin.
Yeah.
And Lee Sin, pretty good blind pick, honestly. He's no pun intended.
Yeah.
But yeah, really good early jungler, just like you said earlier.
Yeah, the early game junglers are coming out right now, and Lee Sin is definitely one of those that you need to watch out for because he's just so incredibly good in the early game, so good in the mid game. And usually what we see in competitive, at least at Worlds, is that the early game is non-existent for some of these junglers, is that they can't really get around in the early game. So they need to try and transition into that mid game, and that eventually turns into the early game, which is very weird to say. But yeah, Lee Sin definitely huge. Kai'Sa is going to be really good if you pair that with something like a Nautilus or a Alistar, if we can see that. But I predicted the Jarvan pick. That's going to be coming out versus that Lee Sin. Jarvan Galio, super, super strong.
Yes, as you mentioned before, as soon as we saw that Galio pick, we're instantly looking for really good setups with Galio's ultimate. You got the Jarvan, you got his ultimate there. And then you got Camilo as well, which can potentially work with Galio. We haven't seen too much Camilo recently, but we also see them, St. Clair, pick up the Tristana. And Tristana, we've seen top lane, we've seen mid lane, bottom lane.
Across.
And then we got as well University of Toronto picking up the Rakan to go with Kaisa as well.
I love what St. Clair are doing right now. They pick the Galio to say, you know what, we can flex this literally wherever we want it. We want to put it. We can put it top lane, we can put it mid lane, we can put it support. What are you guys going to ban now? And you can kind of see Morgana being the next ban. I heard a little bit that they were actually talking about playing the Thresh. So I don't know if we'll get to see that ban coming out next. But Tristana, going to be, I think it's going to go towards that mid lane because Tristana mid, so strong, hasn't gotten nerfed just yet. The one pick I do not like, University of Toronto, pulling out the Rakan. I am definitely not a fan of this pick coming out with Kaisa because they had the support priority. Usually you see Kaisa with a heavy CC support, and Rakan right now, even though he does have CC, he's very squishy.
Yes,
and that's the one thing that's kind of gonna fall because Kaisa, she needs to get into the middle of two people if they want to try and fight in this bot lane. And with Rakan, you can definitely do that, but the counter engage is definitely going to be really strong.
We've seen so many frontline tanky champions with Kaisa, like you mentioned, like Alistar, Nautilus, Braum, and they even went away to pick the Rakan here. They had last pick in that rotation as well, so they could have easily squeezed it in before bans if they wanted to, but they're just not comfortable with it. And so, looking at this, we see them lock in Gangplank here, and that's definitely going to the top lane, mid lane. What do you think here?
It's definitely going to go to the top lane. I think that 1-3-2 is going to try and pick that up and try and just go for a farm lane because he sees what he's up against, right? He sees that this enemy team is going to be full on engage, and you want to try and pick something a little bit more passive into something like that because of the Lee Sin. Lee Sin is probably going to want to target this this bottom side of the map, and I got a little bit excited because I just saw Orianna just because Orianna just got buffed, a massive buff at that. We saw it a little bit of Worlds and it wasn't too successful, but maybe we get to see it here in this collegiate game and it could be very effective.
Yeah, Orianna has definitely been a little bit of a sleeper the last few patches. Seen a little bit of play, but hasn't exactly defined the meta yet. And those recent R buffs that you were just talking about is maybe giving Orianna just a little bit enough more damage with her all-in combo. And then we see the Syndra. Oh boy. The Syndra locked in here. And Syndra, Orianna, what do you think about that matchup?
So the Syndra versus Orianna matchup is a lot of fun to watch because I see Orianna as a champion that can play passive or aggressive. Yeah. Right? She loves to be that aggressive kind of control mage in the mid lane, controlling with her ball, but she can also play passive because she has a shield. Right? She has a speed up that can get away if Lee Sin does end up ganking that lane. The one thing that I love about playing versus a Syndra is that she's very immobile, right? So you see someone like Jarvan, if you can do that EQ flash, that could be very effective. Like that's a little bit of a bug going on. I think it was they weren't able to switch champions.
Yeah, we've seen that bug on the client recently.
Yeah, it happens. So same picks, same bands. Ended up getting that bug, which is very unfortunate. But you were talking about the Syndra versus Orianna lane. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I can't wait to watch this jungle matchup. It's a lot of early game junglers coming out of Jarvan and Lee Sin. So both of them, they do need that level 3. Usually the fastest way to get level 3 is you do red Krugs and then blue, or you know, vice versa, whatever you want to do.
Now, what do you think about this Gangplank and Kled lane?
Yeah, I do love the Gangplank itself because it's just so incredibly passive, and I think that Toronto knew that. They were like, you know what, let's just pick a very passive lane. Let's pick something that scales up so that at level 13, that's when we can start turning on our comp. Until then, let's just chill in the top lane.
Yeah, exactly. And Gangplank, he's one of those picks that he's so, he scales so incredibly well, but he's got the kit that he's able to get out of tricky situations. He's got a built-in cleanse with a heal and the same ability in lane. He's got movement speed just from destroying his barrels. He can get in and out really quickly. So it definitely makes him a slippery top laner that is just always the threat in the game. You know, he's just a ticking time bomb.
Yeah. And the one thing that's really great is that you can gank GP nonstop. It is so incredibly easy to gank this lane, at least as the Jarvan, because if anything happens, EQ Flash is definitely available. Kled with the bear trap on a rope is available. Kled's charge at level 6 is definitely a thing that we need to watch out for. But then even on the other side, I think that if GP can land a really good barrel, like we've seen good GPs come out, and if 1-3-2 is a good GP, Lee Sin can definitely capitalize on that lane. Other than that, I think Lee Sin definitely wants to try and focus towards this bot side, try and get absolute dragon control, try and just absolutely take over this bot lane. We'll see if he can definitely do that.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And you mentioned on how easy it is to gank. Not only is it to gank, but to dive. Kled is one of the best divers that we've seen in this game.
Yeah.
Not only can he gap close that with his E and then set up that bear trap on a rope, but he can also reset the turret aggro just by popping his passive as well.
Yeah, and it's kind of like Elise, right? Elise is really good at tower diving because she can use her repel. Same thing with Kled. Kled initially starts to tank that tower, tries to dish out as much damage as possible, and all of a sudden he goes into Kled form and he can't really do anything. He can Q and then try and run away with his little stick, but that's about it.
Yep.
Other than that, I think GP has a lot of dive he has a lot to prevent a dive because he's got his oranges. He's got, like you were saying, the movement speed is really good, and I think it's gonna be a cool lane to watch. So we talked about this whole entire top side. Now we gotta start touching on this bot lane just a little bit.
Yeah.
So let's get into that.
So we got the Rakan and the Kai'Sa.
Yep.
What do you think of that lane working together as well? You talked about how the Rakan not exactly as tanky as you want it to be, but although having the CC required for the Kai'Sa.
I think that it obviously would have been better if they ended up picking a Nautilus, and the reason why I say that is because Nautilus has more CC than Rakan does.
Yeah, and
he's also tanky. So so the auto even just the auto attacks alone from Nautilus, they stun. Right, and Kai'Sa can ult off of that. The Q, Kai'Sa can ult off of that. The dredge line, you can't, or the Nautilus ultimate, you can't QSS that. Regardless, you're gonna get knocked up and you're gonna get slowed after that. So that's why Kai'Sa is just so good. With Rakan though, she can ult off of the W, which is kind of just a little bit hard to hit, and also the ultimate coming out of Rakan. So it's definitely a nice lane matchup to go together. Rakan a little bit weaker when he's not with Xayah, so it was a really good ban coming out from St. Clair. Looking at the enemy bot lane though, Tristana versus Galio, this is going to be an awesome lane because Tristana, a lot of engage, Galio, a lot of engage. They just get CC to death, and this is going to be a great. I love this draft.
Yeah, exactly. So going over the draft, we've talked about the early game. Let's move in towards the mid game a little bit. We got Dragons, we got Rift Herald, we got First Turret. What do you think it's gonna look like for both of these two teams as far as their priorities, and what do you think they're gonna be trying to do?
Starting off with St. Clair, I think that they have an amazing team fight comp. There's literally nothing that can impenetrate this because Jarvan's gonna get into the middle of 5, and that's his goal, right? He's gonna try and build that tank Jarvan. I hope he builds tank Jarvan because he needs to get into the middle of 5, and Galio has to ult off of that. That's going to be an insane setup for the Orion to then throw in the Shockwave. Then the Tristana's going to try and jump in. There's just so much gap close, and the one thing that's kind of scary about sometimes looking at a team fight comp is can they follow up at the correct time? And I think that St. Clair can definitely do that, right? Sometimes you'll see the Galio Jarvan go in, but then where's the ADC? Where's the mid lane, right? But Orianna, she's got the ball. She can immediately put the ball on somebody, and that's all of a sudden a Shockwave. Tristana, she's got the ult, right? And if she... or not the ult, sorry, the W. And if she needs to get in even more, she has her flash, if she really wants to do that. So there's just so many options for this team to get in, not to mention the Kled. Kled's going to be charging in from every single lane, and it's going to be so much fun to watch. At least St. Clair. Going into Toronto, though, they have a little bit more, I think it's a pick comp. Right? Yeah. They have a little bit more of a single target comp. They've got the Syndra with the stun. Usually that only hits about one person, maybe two if you can place your spheres correctly. But then you also have the Kai'Sa Rakan. That's going to really try and get in there onto 1 or 2. Lee Sin the same thing. And it's kind of nice that they kind of shaped up this comp with the GP ultimate that can definitely do a lot of AoE. Yeah,
and that being said, you talked about how they definitely have more of a pick comp. They have the early game with the Lee Sin as well. I definitely think that they have a kind of like a late game permanent win con that they can also sit on as well. Gangplank can scale really well. Kai'Sa can scale really well. Syndra as well. But that being said, St. Clair, their draft as well. They have the Orianna, the Tristana. Like their late game, like both teams' late games are so incredibly well. Yeah. I definitely think it's just going to come down to the better team wins here.
Yeah, I also think that the jungler is going to play a huge factor into this match. Lee Sin loves to get around in the early game. Same thing with Jarvan. The only thing is I think that Lee Sin has a little bit better of a gap close because he can, he's got the ward hop, he's got the Q if he needs to do that. He's got the slow with his E. Jarvan, it's just EQ. If you hit it, you hit it. If not, you're kind of screwed. So I also want to see what the Jarvan ends up taking here, active force. I want to see if he ends up taking Conqueror or Electrocute, because I've been seeing a lot of Jarvans take the Conqueror because then you can continue autoing, and it really, really helps you in the auto attack game, because with Electrocute, you EQ and that's it. That's your whole entire combo right there, right? The Electrocute comes down, that's the damage. It's really nice burst damage, but it's not the absolute best when you can just continue auto attacking.
Yeah, and you mentioned how Jarvan, it's going to be pretty easy for him to get a nice setup onto Gangplank in the top lane. But if you look at the mid lane, although Syndra is very immobile, if Syndra plays the lane right, she's definitely able to save her Scatter of the Week just to make sure, hey, Jarvan, you're coming in on me. No, you're not.
Yeah,
and just push him away. And then the whole gank is done. Everyone knows where Jarvan is. And then that kind of puts Clair on the short end of the stick.
That's it. And we're going to be heading into the loading screen. So guys, do not go anywhere. We'll be right back with the game, Clair versus Toronto, coming up in just a couple seconds. Oh, okay. Well, we're gonna come back. Just kidding. Apparently, we just had a little bit of a bug, so we're coming back into this one. So we were talking a lot about these two comps. It's gonna be really cool to see. What dragon do you want to see first? We talked a lot about these dragons. And what team really wants to get it here?
Well, obviously, I think both teams would definitely prefer to get an Infernal Drake for themselves. That being said, if they don't have the priority around the dragon, I'm sure that they hope that it's not Infernal Drake. But that being said, both of these teams, I think all 4 dragons are pretty well. Obviously, Infernal being at the high tier as far as generally speaking. But I don't see either of these teams really going for kind of like a split pushing comp. I think that both teams want to kind of group up. One team wants to look for picks more than all-ins. So I think that would definitely put the Air Drake on the lower tier as well. What do you think about this?
I mean, any dragon is great just to see that all come up. But hey, we're heading into this one. This is going to be awesome. St. Clair College versus University of Toronto, Mississauga, as I was just quickly corrected. Game number 1 of this best of 3. And I think that we definitely need to introduce these teams. Coming in onto the blue side, we have St. Clair College. Lord in the top lane, Active Force in the jungle, the Young Falcon coming in at mid lane, Blinn on ADC, and supporting him, Apex Snipes.
Yes, and for Toronto, Mississauga, we got 1-3-2 ADS in the top lane on Gangplank, Algazer, Lee Sin in the jungle, Perks Fanboy, mind you,
Perks.
Syndra in the mid lane, and then Amishio and Ash Ketchum, the duo in the ball lane on the Kaisen Rakan.
Yeah, this is going to be an awesome match.
Yeah, both teams so far got the line of scrimmage going. Neither team going in for an invade. I think that's pretty safe. You don't really have a Blitzcrank, Morgana Thresh, nothing to really catch anything out early.
And I love this 5-point start coming out from both of these teams. It's something that's very passive. You basically plug in every single path of the jungle and also the mid lane Lee Sin going over there. I want to see where these guys end up starting.
Now, how do you think it's going to look like, their pathing?
Right, I think that Lee Sin is definitely going to try and start around the top side. Usually both junglers love to start near their red buff because at least for Jarvan, he loves to get this red buff early. I think both junglers love to get red buff early. I think that's kind of surprising is that Lee Sin is starting top side with no leash. He can definitely do that if he starts the correct ability because Lee Sin is super strong at doing that. But other than that, it's going to be a lot of, let me think. I think that's probably, Lee Sin at least might try at a level 2 skirmish. You can kind of see him pathing towards that top side. Krugs is definitely also a possibility. You can go red Krugs into blue side jungle. Jarvan, same thing. You can go red Krugs into either a bot lane gank or you can walk all the way to your blue side jungle. You can get a very early level 3. We were touching a little bit on these lanes themselves and you can kind of already see the effects of the top lane coming in.
Yeah, we mentioned as far as where they're starting, and something that kind of went unnoticed was that Toronto Mississauga actually placed a ward on the chicken camp of J4, and they saw exactly where he was starting. And although you mentioned how Lee Sin didn't get a leash at level 1, Gangplank went straight into lane, and we saw the fake leash from the Rakan and the Kai'Sa ball lane. So St. Clair College had no vision of the Lee Sin, probably until right now. He's about to be spotted on that ward right there. But so they had no idea where he was starting.
It's a little bit weird too because obviously St. Clair can't exactly see this, but Lee Sin actually had to go back to his Krugs because he wanted that extra little Krug that ran away. So it's a little bit of time being wasted coming in from Lee Sin, but what's really nice is he's trying to do this vertical jungling because he wants to try and invade the Jarvan. However, you do see Syndra going over to this blue buff, so there's a bunch of communication going down. Orianna knows that Lee Sin is around this area. Jarvan gonna quickly spot him. Let's see how this one turns out.
He's gonna have to try to finish up really quick here, and both of them being level 3. Yeah. So we saw Jarvan with the full clear in the bottom lane.
Yeah.
Went for the recall. That was a little bit of a, I don't know, debatable situation, but although he does get pretty weak after clearing his Krugs and his Raptors, definitely understandable.
Yeah.
And mind you, you also have to keep in mind, they thought that he was starting blue side.
Yeah.
Because we saw as we mentioned before, the Kais and the Rakan fake leashing bot and GP going straight into lane. They thought Lee Sin was out of his blue buff, so they thought, okay, there's no way he's taking my top jungle right now.
And the reason why Jarvan wanted to clear the Raptors there is just to kind of reset that bot side so that they both spawn at kind of the correct time. Young Falcon in the mid lane gonna get stunned.
Yeah, so Lee Sin lands the Q and gets the flash out of Young Falcon. The Ignite burn from Syndra as well. He's going to go for a little bit more damage. The Ignite, a last tick, finishes the Young Falcon. First blood going over to Toronto Mississauga.
Yeah, and a nice stun coming out there in the mid lane coming in from Syndra. Nice little communication coming down there.
Excellent gank from Alk there. Getting that Q on Young Falcon. Getting the flash before he took the second Q definitely helped him secure that kill. Every little bit of damage mattered there because as you saw, Syndra had to back off there, but we see a little bit of trading going on in the top lane. A little bit of an even matchup. That's the thing. You see Gangplank getting the Corrupting Pod, right? Why don't you go a little bit into that as far as the Corrupting Pod versus Door and Starlight? Why do you think both of them opted to go for these here?
I think that Kled was looking for more of an aggressive lane. One pod is fine enough for Kled because you can easily go back early if he really needs to. GP usually because you spam the Qs in the lane and you want to try and get as much gold as possible like that.
Yeah, we see both the junglers here sitting in the river. It's a little bit interesting here because you see them both, and Alkazer is just going to walk up, dismounted Kled. Kled almost, one more hit would have given him the Kled there, but that was an excellent flash. I think that was the correct call rather than greeting for the last auto attack there to bring back Scar into the fight. I 100% respect there. I would have done the exact same thing. Low touch me, just barely going to slip away.
Yeah, both of these junglers going into these side lanes and trying to get off literally whatever they can. Jarvan went into the bot lane. The only thing they ended up getting was a Kai'Sa heal. But in the top lane, Lord ended up blowing his flash. So it's definitely a little bit of a better trade coming in from Toronto Mississauga. Definitely really good in that front. What's really nice to see in the mid lane, though, is that Orianna is starting to play a little bit more passive.
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes what we see is Syndra absolutely take away the game if she ends up getting one kill. And what's nice is that Falcon is not letting her do that. Just trying to play passive in the mid lane, try and farm up just a little bit better, and we'll see what ends up coming out of that. But we need to see a little bit more action out of these junglers, and I think that Lee Sin is really looking towards that top side.
Yeah, I think Lee Sin so far this game has definitely done a really good job at showing his early game presence. We talked about how these early game junglers are definitely making more of an impact in the current meta right now. And a little bit of trading going on the top lane. Kled probably going to walk away with a little bit of advantage of that, but as you mentioned before, we got Gangplank with the Corrupting Potion, going to give him that sustain. We talked about early Drakes, what we wanted to see. We actually got an Infernal Drake here, going for the first one, and St. Clair College is going to try to get ahead on that, but look at this. No vision on the Drake. We just see Purse Fanboy coming in to grab a little bit of Honey Fruit, and oh boy, Young Falcon going to get caught out, Scatter the Meek, and the ultimate from Syndra finishing her off there.
Yeah, also a really good kill coming in from Tristana as well. We see a giant logo in the middle of her screen. It's fine. Syndra trying to look for literally whatever she can here onto Tristana. Tristana going to be able to jump away, which is really good. Red buff being taken by Jarvan as well, and that's going to be Infernal going right on over to Toronto Mississauga.
Yeah, I definitely think that was a little more of a questionable call. And oh boy, we see Active Force caught in here. Going to have to flash out of the pit. Ignite burned from Ash Ketchum. Not too bad of a deal. I definitely would take that trade every day of the week if I was University of Toronto. But I don't know. I definitely think that was a little bit of a questionable call there because we saw that Orianna didn't exactly have priority in the mid lane. We didn't know that. We didn't know where Syndra was. We didn't know where Lee Sin was, and they were on the bot side.
Yeah, definitely a really nice kind of follow-up coming in from Toronto. They definitely know how to at least surround a dragon and communicate effectively in order to take an objective just like that. Syndra really, really strong. Even though she's only got one assist, definitely played a really big role in that team fight. It's very unfortunate that Orianna couldn't really be Orianna in that fight, which is very unfortunate. We now get to see the gold lead coming through for each of these lanes. The Syndra definitely huge lead coming in, 600 gold. Also in the bot lane, Tristana, really good for her. Ended up netting herself a kill at the start of that fight as well.
Yeah, I could not agree more. We see a little bit of a CS lead towards the Tristana here. Wave is about matched even right now. You see Kai'Sa shoving it in right now. But that early kill on Tristana, I think that Blinn is going to have to kind of, pull a little bit of weight on his back here because St. Clair doesn't really have much going for them right now. We see Alkazer going in to steal the blue buff. Is he going to get it? He goes for it. And Jarvan ends up stealing this. Valkyries are going to all in the Active Force instead of the blue buff. Active Force just barely slipping away. Scatter hitting the J4 and Lee Sin lands the Q and finishes Active Force. Cled's going to charge in here, though.
Yeah, Cled's going to come in, absolutely whiff just everything. A little bit of a question mark ping going down onto him. A little bit of BM. That's absolutely fine, though.
The University of Toronto, Mississauga getting that early kill there. So, what do you think about this? What do you think both of these teams are going to have to... Do you think they're going to have to change anything? Do you think that they're playing to their win cons really well?
Well, the one thing that I was talking about in Champion Select is how is this mid-jungle duo going to synergize? And we can already see out of St. Clair that theirs isn't really all that good. Right, Orianna getting hard camped in the mid lane, and Jarvan can't really do anything about that. But on the other front, this is what Lee Sin is playing off of.
Yeah.
He knows that his mid lane is destroying, and he has mid lane priority. So that's what he's ultimately trying to go for: get into the enemy jungle so that Syndra can follow up with just through sheer communication is what we end up seeing. Right, just like, hey, come into the enemy jungle with me. We're going to try and get a pick, and we know exactly where Jarvan is because we have absolutely warded up this jungle to the perfection, and they were just able to predict that. Really nice.
You talked about the lane priority, and we've definitely seen that so far. University of Toronto, Mississauga playing the lane priority game really, really well. They're going for roams into the enemy jungle. We see Lee Sin invading blue buff. We see them going around the dragon. When they have the lane priority, St. Clair, they're trying to do the same thing as Mississauga here, but they just don't have the lane priority that they need to do that because you see the Orianna roaming, we see the J4 trying to take Drake, but their lanes are being shoved in, and then they're not able to respond as quickly as Mississauga.
And I think the one thing that St. Clair need to play off of here is their bot lane. Like, they're absolutely destroying in terms of gold, in terms of CS, even though it is only like a 5 CS lead. They can eventually turn that into something a little bit bigger, and you can see on Tristana's items, she already has a BF sword and a pickaxe. You look over at Kaisa, and she has a tier and a pickaxe. So it's there's a clear difference in terms of gold lead in that regard. So I think that's what Jarvan needs to start playing around. He needs to stop worrying about this mid lane too much because Orianna, regardless, is going to scale. We know that Orianna with the shockwave is going to scale regardless. He needs to try and take over this bot lane however he can. Doesn't get hit by the stun, which is really good, but he needs to start doing stuff around the map.
Yeah, exactly. And now we see 10 minutes into the game, we see the Rift Herald spawning.
Yep. And
what we've seen a lot in Worlds recently is that a lot of teams are starting to rotate their bottom lane to the top lane, trying to get that extra man around that Rift Herald. And so far, we don't see any of them doing them just yet. Do you think that they're going to start playing around the Rift Herald, or do you think they're going to wait until the next dragon spawns?
So one thing that Lee Sin did over on SKT is he solo took it. Because his top side was winning just so heavily, he ended up just saying, you know what, I just need to take this myself. I don't need to rotate my bot lane. I don't need to be clutch. Let's just take it solo. And I think what Lee Sin can do is maybe try and focus this mid lane and then maybe transition into something like that. Yeah. But other than that, it could just be Lee Sin going towards this bot lane, trying to get this dragon that's going to be coming up really soon. It's going to be another Infernal as well. So I think that Toronto Mississauga is going to be really good.
Yeah, you mentioned on how SKT's top lane was just snowballing so hard that he was able to solo here. Don't exactly have that luxury yet because in top lane, although we do see that really big CS lead on the gangplank here, Cled can very easily respond to that as well by charging in. And if you look at St. Clair right now, like that Tristana has the lead over the Kaisa right now, so I definitely can see why they're still trying to play around this bot side. They're trying to get that Infernal Drake. I would not be surprised if St. Clair, after taking this Infernal Drake or after whatever happens here, sends them up there because Tristana right now definitely has the edge over the Kaisa.
Yeah, just try and camp this bot lane, see what you can do to that enemy tower. But right now we see that this dragon has huge priority. Active Force, we'll see if he can actually go in here.
Oh, Lord Touch Me going to charge in on the Cled. He actually rotated down to the bottom side of the map. Apex Snipe not going to connect with the Gary right there. Oh, barely gets out of that one. But then look at this. They're going all in on Rakan. Rakan, Lord Touch Me is going to take down Ash Ketchum. Perks Fanboy going to return a little bit of damage onto Active Force. Not exactly going to do much there. That's going to be a 1-for-0 for St. Clair.
And a little bit of damage going down onto this Syndra at the end of that team fight. I feel like Toronto, they want to go for another fight at that. Lee Sin, we'll see if he can land anything. Shockwave being...
Orianna gonna just throw out the Shockwave there, not quite gonna connect, but look at this. We got a 5 versus 4 here on Gangplank Ultimate coming in. Blue team is gonna get the dragon here, but look at this. They're all inning right now. Apex Sniper gonna fall as well. Or excuse me, Apex Sniper had already fallen. Lord Touch Me as well. Yeah, you know, I'm definitely gonna have to come up with a nickname for that.
You're good. You're good.
Daniel.
Yeah. Perks fanboy ended up getting 2 kills at the end of that team fight, netting himself a double kill, which is really, really good. Active Force now gonna just turn around, go right towards that red buff, right? Just try and reset. But like I was saying earlier, you don't need to rotate your bot lane for something like a Rift Herald when your top lane has massive priority over it. They're gonna immediately start onto it. And we'll see what lane ends up getting collapsed on next.
Yeah, it doesn't look like Clair is trying to do anything about it right now. We're not even sure if they know about it because they don't exactly have any vision. We saw Gangplank walk up into the top side and being spotted on that river bush. But Mississauga's just going to take that Rift Herald for free here, and Clair isn't exactly doing anything to return that. They're not getting anything out of this.
What's good is that Jarvan didn't end up dying in that last fight. Right? He kind of netted himself a little bit of an assist, which does mean a lot. He was able to finish off the Cinderhulk, got himself a little bit of a Ruby Crystal at the end of that as well. So he's not on the same level as Lee Sin, but we now get to look at different items that are being finished up, right? You see in the top lane, Kled going for the Phage into Tiamat, which is absolutely amazing for him. His counterpart, GP, though, ends up getting the Triforce. Yes. That is absolutely huge. That's a huge power spike coming in for GP, but we also got to look at this bot lane. Again, Tristana not dying by the end of that team fight, netting herself an assist. Just means that she was able to finish off the IE, and it's really good facing off against something like Kai'Sa, because Kai'Sa does take a little bit of time in order to finally scale up. But as for Tristana, she's got immediate burst. She can immediately go in just like that.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier in this game on how the Recon isn't exactly going to do the job as a tankier support with like Braum, like Nautilus, like Alistar, and we've sort of seen that early. Like we haven't exactly seen Rakan Kai'Sa do very well into Galio Tristana just because of how safe that lane is and how easily Tristana is able to farm up. And also mentioned before how J4, how easy of a lane it would be to gank top lane, but we haven't exactly seen much action in the top lane so far.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate in that regard. Lee Sin, though, coming towards the top side.
Clyde's going to dismount here, and Lee Sin landing the Q, and Alkazer is going to pick up that kill for 1-for-0. They might end up getting the turret here as well, as we don't see anyone from Clair on the top side of the map.
Rift Herald being put down as well. Lee Sin targeting literally the priority lane. Kled just feels so forced to do something, and that's such an unfortunate scenario, but the bot lane got the first tower, baby. That was a really good rotation.
Now,
I love it.
As small as that is, that's actually huge here, because they're not going to get anything from the top lane. They're probably going to end up taking 2 turrets here, so at least they're able to get a little bit of extra gold getting that first turret there. Good for Clair, but that being said, they definitely got to try to do something about that top side of the map here. But that being said, 20 minutes is coming up soon. We're going to see the Baron come up. That tier 1 falling, why don't you tell us about how you think about that?
That's going to be huge, because now immediately GP has full-on control of this top lane, and I don't... like, obviously he can switch lanes with the bot lane if they really want to, but I think what's going to happen here, GP is slowly walking back towards that top side. He wants full-on control of this lane because he already had it. A GP at 16 minutes when you're level 11, you're completely fine, right? Usually level 13 is that power spike for GP, but if you can get it even earlier, you can try and take over a lot of these side lanes. And you can see GP, again, now going back towards that bot side. He wants to try and take that tier 1 if really possible. Dragon, the Ocean Dragon, going to be coming up in just 1 minute. It is an absolutely massive, massive objective if they want to try and put all full-on force onto that bot lane. You can kind of see Kled not having the TP. Right? He doesn't have his charge, so he's going to try and slowly maybe rotate down here or just try and get this top lane tier 1. His movements were kind of confusing me a little bit because he pushed out that top lane and then backed off. Now he's going back towards that top lane. So we have no idea if Clair just want to try and give this up or not.
Well, it looks like that University of Toronto Mississauga might actually be looking for a dive on the Young Falcon here. The turret's very healthy, but Cinder whiffs the scatter with Meekly Sin here. Going to get the kick, land the Q. Young Falcon barely getting out of the shockwave, doesn't quite go off. Young Falcon is going to fall there, and that looks like that's going to be another turret for University of Toronto Mississauga here.
Super, super clean. You shove Orianna in a side lane, and that's such a bad thing to do when the enemy team wants to focus this bot side. You're sending your weakest man bot, and that's not what you want to do versus a Syndra, Lee Sin, as well as a Rakan from what we just ended up seeing there. But Dragon going to be coming up. Active Force.
Gonna use his full combo to get in there. Okay, so landing the Q on Active Force, but not gonna take it. Good use of mental there. Usually we see a lot of Lee syndrome. They're late in the queue. Oh, I landed in the queue. I better take it. But yeah, they're going to be starting Ocean Drake up right here. Oriana trying to make her way over there, but it looks like University of Toronto Mississauga is going to be doing a little more damage with the charge coming in here. Rakan knocking up the Kled. Active Force being pushed away by the Syndra, and then, oh my goodness, Perks Fanboy going on a rampage on J4. Lord barely getting, he doesn't quite get out. He doesn't get the Scarl back. Apex Snipe also going to fall here as well. That's going to be 4 for 0 there, as well as the Ocean Drake in favor of University of Toronto Mississauga. However, we're not done yet. Young Falcon landing the Shockwave. Doesn't quite finish the Lee Sin. He's just going to walk away. Yeah, just to get away. Nice Shockwave being landed. I think this is one of his first being landed this whole entire match. So that's really good. Starting to see a little bit of consistency coming out of the Young Falcon. But it's kind of unfortunate that Toronto are starting to absolutely take over this mid lane. They've got all of the priority towers except for bot lane, so we get to see maybe that fall in just a couple of seconds if they can do that. But what I want to see out of Toronto right now is them not be scared. Yeah. Because Baron's coming up in just a couple of seconds, about 30 seconds even at that, and they're in a perfect position to actually take it. They don't really have a tank, but they can definitely trade the aggro through the GP, through the Rakan, and they've got honestly the perfect targets in order to take it. Lee Sin takes Baron perfectly. Syndra has a lot of zoning, so she can put her spheres in the river if needed, and as well Kai'Sa, she has her passive. That does so much damage to Baron every single time you reset it. She also has the Rage Blade, so it's a big objective that they definitely need to focus down, and if they can try and force it, if they can try and go around it and try and set up for it, it'd be a really good objective. Yeah, we see about a 6K gold lead in favor of University of Toronto Mississauga right now. Baron spawning up right now. That being said, there's outs for St. Clair. We see the shutdown gold right now on the entire side of University of Mississauga. We got 200 gold on Jake, 300 on Lee Sin, 400 on Syndra, arguably the squishiest target to take down. There's a lot of outs. That's a lot of gold that can go in favor of St. Clair. Look at the gold lead between each of these lanes. Top lane, almost 2K. A 2K lead. In the jungle, it's 1. In the mid lane, it's almost 3. That's absolutely 2 or 3. It's definitely insane. The one lane actually keeping up is the Tristana. We've been talking about this Blinn Apex lane so much because they've just been so good together as a duo, and also I don't know, they just know how to keep up in gold. They know how to keep up in the CS. I was talking about the 5 CS lead turning into something. It's already turned into a 20 CS lead. So you can kind of see how that slowly snowballed throughout this match. It's honestly on the back of Tristana. If Jarvan can start building tanky, if Kled can start building tanky, if Oriana can position correctly in fights and allow Tristana to really get the resets and start to pop off, that is when St. Clair are going to start winning some of these team fights. It's a 6K lead so far for Toronto Mississauga, so they got to start doing something fast. Yeah, I could not agree more with you, Daniel. We saw Gangplank actually go even up until this most recent team fight. Hang on a second. Perks Fanboy going to land Scatter the Meek on the Galio. Galio going to he's going to get out there, get a little bit of damage reduction there, and That being said, we see the ultimate is now gone from Syndra, so potentially, if I was St. Clair College right now, they didn't burn anything on getting out there. This could be their opportunity. Why not? Yeah, they definitely have that opportunity. Galio still has Hero's Entrance if they do want to use that. The Tristana was just sitting mid lane, just trying to farm up as best as possible. You put Kled versus GP, even though Kled cannot face against GP in a match like this, you're just you're putting down a wall in that ball lane. Just allow the Kled to take as much damage as possible, try and prevent the GP from taking anything more than a tier 1. Jarvan gonna land right here, and Blinn gonna hop in. Flash from Syndra, and the Lee Sin is going to come join the fight here. It looks like the Mississauga's going to try to turn this. The Gangplank coming in here. Ami Shield is going to land the W on the Tristana, pick her off. Active Force is going to fall as well. That's potentially Baron. Yeah, definitely a really nice double kill coming in. Jarvan missing the EQ, and sometimes when you play jungle. Shockwave from Young Falcon going to take Ami Shield down to about half health. I don't think that's going to change their mind on Baron here. Apex sniping Young Falcon, hovering around the top side. Kled is going bot side, though. He has teleport available. I'm just going to start with the Baron. Yeah. They're going to try and start up the Baron here. We'll see if it's going to go down anytime soon. The charge coming in from Kled. See if that does anything huge. Charge right here. Baron still has 6K. Going to go on to Ash Ketchum. Ash Ketchum going to all knock up Apex Snipe here. Galio's all being canceled as well. They're trying to turn this. Perks Fanboy is going to go unstoppable on Oriana. Galio's going to fall as well from 1-3-2. Lord Touch is going to dismount there and get fallen as well. And that is definitely going to be Baron here. However, Active Force, he's back up now. Do you think he's potentially going to go for a steal here?
I think that if he passed correctly, then he can definitely try and do something. Like I was saying earlier, is that Syndra is really good at defending off this Baron. Baron now at 6k HP. We'll see if he tries to do literally anything, and he can't. They send Blinn towards the bot side to try and clear that. Maybe try and get priority around this Dragon, but that's Baron going over to the side of Toronto Mississauga 23 minutes in.
Yeah, 23 minutes in. 10k gold lead, 16-2 in the kills. Got a boundary right now. We're getting a little bit of variety from the Dragons here. What do you think? What do you think St. Clair can do to try to get back in this game?
It's super, super hard, right? Like I was saying earlier, is that they need to play around this Tristana, but when Tristana kind of gets picked off, or at least when the rest of the members of the team get picked off and Tristana cannot get into the fight, it's just super, super unfortunate when they just can't get the team synergy down. Right? I think that St. Clair, that's exactly what they're missing, is that they don't have jungle mid synergy all that well. They don't have jungle top synergy all that well. I think the only lane that's really effective together is this bot lane. They know how to play with each other. They know how to play against literally anything. And I think that they need to try and play off of their main priority lanes, at least going into game number 2. And in this game, however, I think they just need to try and get any sort of picks if possible. I'm going to say the famous color caster line, they can still come back. And I think they're going to do so just by trying to get as many picks as possible. Literally even trading 1 for 1. Because look at the shutdowns. It's 300 gold, Lee Sin, 300 in the top lane, 600.
Bonus gold.
Bonus gold, exactly. So it could literally, anybody that kills Syndra can get 1,000 gold.
Yeah, and that's incredible. And that could be potentially a whole recurve bow. That's almost a BF sword for the Tristana. That could definitely almost be enough for Blinn to try to come back into this game. But look, one thing I've noticed in these team fights, Daniel, is that we see J4 go in, we see Galio go in, Orianna's trying to get the shockwave, Clair's charging in. No one's back with the Tristana.
Yeah.
And that's a really huge issue, because when Blinn is your win condition at this point, you need to make sure that she stays alive, and then you just see the Rakan and then Lee Sin just dive onto that Tristana.
And I don't even think Tristana's even in these fights. That's the one thing that I was thinking. Active Force, though, the charge coming out.
Charge coming in from Clair here. Alkays are going to go all in here as well. And Perks is going to take down the Galio. Hero's entrance going to get that huge knock up.
There we go.
Ami Shield going to take one and try to get out here. Lord is going to go back onto the Kai'Sa. Galio seeing the Ami Shield as well. And that's a triple kill for Kai'Sa. Oh my goodness, Quadra for Kai'Sa. That looks like that fight was going to go into St. Clair's favor, but the Kai'Sa just completely 1v4'd that whole fight.
Blinn, I feel like Blinn's positioning was just a little bit lackluster there, because he ended up jumping into the guy who ultimately ended up killing him at the end of the day. It's a 10-second respawn time coming in from Active Force. Other than that, that's a bot lane inhibitor going down.
A very, very productive Baron power play from Toronto Mississauga here. Getting that entire bot side, the Earth Drake, the gold from the Baron itself, whole ace, and now they're taking mid turrets as well. They're playing this really, really well. I really think that they're executing their win condition.
Yeah, I just, like, I was talking about this earlier, is that at level 13 GP is going to start to scale, and he also had a really, really nice laning phase at the, coming in from Lee Sin as well. Lee Sin trying to camp this mid lane. He knew exactly where to go. I think initially what I was talking about was it's all up to these junglers where they're going to go, and you can really see how that's a huge, huge effect. Lee Sin not really ganking the bot lane, honestly, all that much. He just really tried to prioritize this top side of the map and try and shut down this Kled, and he was able to do so. He was able to shut down the Orianna as well. And then off of that, their bot lane was able to play off of it. So it literally wasn't even Lee Sin camping bot lane or even ganking the lane. It was literally just the top side of the map winning. So automatically the bot side, if they literally went even in lane, they automatically won that lane, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, exactly. When you're a scaling champion like Gangplank, when you're a scaling champion like Kai'Sa, if you're going even, if you're not losing, you're winning.
If you're not losing, you're winning. That's the quote of the day, ladies and gentlemen. As we see University of Toronto slowly pushing out this top lane, we'll see exactly what they can get. They ended up getting a tier 2 top lane with that Baron. I don't actually think they had Baron.
I definitely like the 4-1 that they got going now. You see the 4-1 Gangplank in the mid lane. He doesn't exactly have a really far way to go. All he has to do is hit a barrel, go to top side if he needs to join the fight. But look at the minions coming in from the bottom side of the map. They're going to have to send one, if not two people to respond to that. And that's when Toronto Mississauga is probably going to go in.
Active Force in the top lane, they're going to go in.
And Ash Ketchum going to ult as the recon. Active Force going to go in. Ult the Syndra. Syndra's going to flash out. Scatters the Meek onto the Tristana. Tristana going to have to flash out. Whiffs.
Sombrero.
Oh yeah. Unfortunately, Amishio going to barely not kill him there, but Lord Touch is going to fall as well as the Galio. 2 for 0. And that might be enough for them to win this game. They're going to rotate over to the mid lane here. Or no, excuse me, the bottom lane. They're going to go for the Nexus turret here and try to finish out this game.
Yeah,
and then Active Force going in as well. Getting the knockup. Blinn is going to slay Ash Ketchum there. Oh boy, Amishio is legendary, taking out J4. And that is going to be Game 1 in favor of University of Toronto Mississauga.
That's it, 25-6, University of Toronto Mississauga. Game number 1, 57K to 42K. They take game number 1 with ease. Really nice game being played by them.
Yeah, I definitely think that they did a really good job snowballing that early lead that they got on the Lee Sin and the Syndra, and they just completely took over the game. You saw Syndra die one time that entire game, and that was in like the second most recent fight, excuse me. And I don't know. I definitely think that what we talked about in Champ Select, as far as the win conditions for these teams, I definitely think University of Toronto Mississauga did it better. Yeah,
it was just all around. I think that their synergy with the jungler in the mid and the top was just absolutely perfect, and I think that's what ended up winning them the game. The ball lane just had to stay even. Literally just go 0-0-0 and we'll end up winning this match, and that's exactly what ended up happening.
If you're not losing, you're winning.
That's it. There we go. So I think at the end of that one, I think we can actually send it off to a break because we've been talking for a while. So let's try and catch our breath. We'll be right back with this match, University of Toronto Mississauga versus St. Clair, coming up in just a little bit.